So that you know that.
I know.
Apologize, I'm expecting a challenge. There we go.
I'll call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Bolinas Community Public Utility District. Today is April the 19th, 2023. And this meeting is being conducted in person and also by Zoom. Board directors are present. Director Kirsten Walker is not. With that, I'll go to item 3, community expression. That's an opportunity for members of the audience to address the board on matters which are not on the agenda and for which we can take no action, but we're willing to entertain a brief discussion of 3 minutes or so. If you have something you'd like to say, we have any community expression items?
We do.
All right, you've got the floor.
Thank you, Jack.
You're welcome.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the all volunteer Bolinas Eucalyptus Project, I'm John Cote. Since we last addressed this board, we have raised over $100,000, produced and distributed a 16-page informational booklet. It was sent to every property owner and post office box holder in Bolinas back when we had a post office. We have continued to develop our plan and gather information while maintaining a presence in local media with updates also at the Bolinas Civic Group's monthly town meetings. Big shout out to Will Bartlett for that. Early in 2022, the California Coastal Commission requested we provide a detailed accounting of the number, size, and exact location of the trees we propose to remove as the first phase of our native vegetation restoration project. They also requested a more detailed restoration plan with a map before they will comment further. To satisfy the first of these requirements, we hired Tom Gammon, a licensed forester from Inverness. Tom produced a remarkable report. It is a comprehensive inventory, mapping, and assessment of every tree in the Zone 5 project area, which of course includes the 7.6 acres of the project that is on BCPUD property. I should note the 7.6 acres is just 28% of the eucalyptus and mixed woodland on the BCPUD and adjoining lands. Tom Gammon's report was preceded in January of 2021 by a preliminary arborist report. That report was authored by Master Arborist Ben Anderson of Urban Forestry Associates, which happens to be Ray Morris's company. To meet the second directive of the California Coastal Commission, Tom Gammon will join us again. This time he'll work with our very own Judith Lowry, native plant expert, author, and a great teammate, to create a restoration map and report. Next week, Kent Julin, who holds a PhD in forestry science and is also a consulting arborist, will begin work on our third arborist report. Kent's work will address in a more targeted way some distinctly different yet equally dangerous structural issues seen in the trees throughout this stand. Our first hire of 2022, before Tom Gammon, was WRA Environmental Consultants. They will be presenting tonight. After a full year and thousands of dollars spent, we have yet to understand the direction they are pursuing or why they are pursuing it. Our biggest obstacle moving forward, it would appear, is to be the slight monarch visitation. Please keep in mind, of all monarchs counted on the Bolinas Peninsula dating back to 1997, only 1.3% were observed within our project's footprint. We have been told by a local butterfly expert that they have a different interpretation of the data. They have yet to elaborate on this. 1.3% is not our interpretation. It is simply a factual data point. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, John. Anybody have a question or would just thank you for providing that to us and we'll be part of what goes on. I think also Jennifer and her manager's report. They're talking about the project.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Where is the data from?
Oh, thank you, Andrew. The Xerxes Society
Oh,
butterfly count
from their data. Okay.
from their data, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other, David, did you have your hand up? Yes.
Yeah. I also wanted to comment on this subject.
Okay,
I'm David Ainley. Moving back to Bolinas after being gone for 25 years this week. I'm the editor of a scientific journal. I've published about 300 peer-reviewed articles. I want to make sure that, or whatever, there's no science that's involved in this issue, except for Isaac's law of gravity. And I'm really surprised that this project isn't just a slam dunk, given the liability that BCPUD has for the safety of Bolinas residents or visitors. I think there's two. I think Xerxes Society is playing off your good graces, wanting you to feel guilty about doing harm to monarch butterflies. And there's a small group of Bolinas residents who have some religious connection to cathedral-like trees that overhang roads and that sort of thing. And these people also are playing you, offering some like both sidism type of controversy. So I mean, my main issue is with Xerxes, which is they have no data. They can't tell you why monarch butterflies left Terrace Avenue, nor can they give you any credible insight into when they'll return, which would be almost never. They can't explain to you why there was a resurgence in monarch butterflies last year, and also why it was from Santa Cruz South. If you look at their top 50 butterfly sites, they're all associated with human activity, which is to say, they don't have the data to go out there and survey thousands of acres where there could well be monarchs. But they just don't have, well, it's an NGO doesn't have any money. But anyway, they can't, are relying on citizens to find a tree where there's monarchs is, and then anyway, it's not science. And so if you, I don't know, my 2 minutes is up.
well, we understand what you're saying. For us, I don't think that anybody's really playing us. We're just going through a process that we have to go through to evaluate a proposal, listen to all sides, and make a decision on what to do. And we're in the middle of doing that. So,
Yeah.
your input is part of it, but
Okay, well, the agencies, public agencies, and news media have taken society down the climate change road for 20 years on this both siderism type stuff. And there isn't both siderism to this issue.
okay, I think, do you have any other things you wanted to address in your community expression?
No, this is a weed patch and it needs to be removed.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Dave.
Is there any other community expression?
Yes, there's someone, iPad.
Okay,
It's Janine, the iPad person.
yeah, we should know that. I think you're the only one that has that.
I don't know why I can't get a video on this, but I want to bring up one topic, and maybe Jennifer's going to address it in her review today, but I noticed on the agenda, there's nothing about the hot topic issue of last month, which was the running of both water lines and the possibility of running septic lines under public roads. And so I guess anybody can go online. It's really easy to find the county regulations say that the location of systems have to be on what are called contiguous lots. It's mentioned in a number of items within the county regulations. And if you look up contiguous lots, it will say that so parcels of land separated by a public street or other lots are not considered contiguous, even if they are owned by the same entity or person. So that to me would mean, I mean, maybe there's more information I don't have, but that to me would mean that a lot across the street is not a contiguous lot, therefore does not qualify for the main parcel's septic system or water lines. So maybe that's true, maybe that's not true. But the absence of this item on the agenda makes me wonder, what is the district's goal in this? Is it to amend the county regulations, or have the BPUD or have Bolinas have a different set of regulations in order to, I'm wondering, where is this going and what is the justification? What's the rationale in general? Maybe Jennifer's going to address it, but I think it's important to the public because they are concerned. So I
Okay,
would,
I'll
yeah.
address it. Well, actually, it's going nowhere. There was one proposal that was made to amend one of our resolutions that would address the issue you proposed, and there wasn't even anyone on the board who made a motion to consider it, so it died for the lack of a motion. And since then, the issue has not come back to the BPUD at all. So
Okay.
the status quo remains unaffected. And Jennifer, did you want to say anything?
I will report on a county correspondence in my manager's report about this.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay,
But we're not going to change any of the ways that we do things. Okay, we're continuing just the same way, Janine. All right.
yeah, I appreciate that. And then having it be publicly expressed is important. So I thank you
Sure.
very much. I do appreciate that.
Okay, if the issue is going to come back to the board, then it would appear on the agenda so that members of the public could then have the kind of discussion that you're prepared for. But at this point, there's nothing that's been brought to us. Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Any other people who would like to address the board under community expression?
Can I ask a follow-up to John Cozy's?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Can you clarify something you said about working with WRA? I didn't really understand. You're waiting for a response from them, or?
We have been, well, they initially started working with us a year ago, April. And they are to do a biological assessment of the site and a targeted monarch study. The same proposal they'll be giving tonight, I believe. And we just haven't gotten anything. We've gotten a condensed report, which was really a collection of roadblocks, potential roadblocks with no acknowledgement of some features in the local coastal plan that are very advantageous to this program. In fact, if you read the LCP in the biological section, we're poster children for what they want done. You know, if you agree with the LCP, you agree with this project. And they've seemingly gone out of their way not to acknowledge that that exists. And we've sent them, Monday morning was our third letter, asking for some expansive feedback and insight into what direction they're taking, as it said in my little spiel. We're just feeling in the dark. and blown off, and, you know, as the customer, as the person paying them, are just not at all pleased.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you.
I do have one, because I've been involved a little bit and tried to stay on the side, but I think one thing, and I let them speak for themselves when they have the opportunity, but I think one thing that may be happening is because of the meeting that we had with the county, where, you know, the people from Bolinas Eucalyptus Group and Marin Water, we had a lot of planners, the Zoom meeting that we had a little while back. And they listened to all these arguments, accounting planners, about provisions in the local coastal plan and why it should be that we should be able to proceed either without a permit or with an emergency permit. And they listened to all of that. And then Supervisor Rodoni led the meeting, and he said, well, we're going to need to confer internally with a community development agency and make a decision. And then about a month later, he came back and he said that they're not able to conclude that an emergency coastal permit would be available. They don't think it will qualify, but that at the very least, they need a biological assessment as the next step. And so, and then he said, remember that the emergency permit requires all the same work. And then he also said he personally wanted to know that the restoration part of it was going to be, you know, part and parcel. In other words, that he was sort of signaling, I think, my opinion was that the county, as long as the restoration project was, you know, that's part of what the project is, and that yeah, I know. I'm just saying that's what he wants, is that's what he was signaling, is that don't just come to us with a thing to say cut down all the tree. You know, it needs to be the restoration project, which is completely consistent with the Bolinas Eucalyptus Group wants. But I think that's kind of where the tension has been, is that then it's like they can't. I think WRA's view is that they need to then do a complete biological assessment and consider, you know, all habitat. So
Which we hired them to do a
Yeah.
year ago, and which for several months.
that I
they were
don't know.
telling us,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
just.
All right, I'm gonna return to the agenda,
Sorry.
and then as this comes up, Jennifer can report. So I think that ends community. That's all right.
Thanks, John.
All right, the next item is the manager's report.
Okay, the first item I have is an update on the status of the water supply. And unlike I've done for many months now, I don't actually have a written report that I posted on the website, because we've just been totally overwhelmed in the office with a lot of things going on. And it seemed like a good month to be able to skip it, because basically I can say everything's great. That we have received 38.12 inches of rain so far this rain year, and as of today. And so the cumulative rainfall is officially above the average annual rainfall of 32 inches by a good, what is that, 20%? So that's great. Just it's interesting that, it was really spread out. We got just some sporadic rainfall up until December, in the tenths of inches. And then we had in November just under 2 inches, but then in December we had 9.44 inches, January 12.2. And then we had that dry February, just 3 inches, and then March 9.5 inches, and then about another ½ inch in April. So, it did come quite a bit all at once, so to speak, in December and January, when we certainly then experienced a lot of damage that I'm going to talk about next. But and so the entire state did from the atmospheric rivers. But that's how the rain's been spread out this year, and so we're going to be above annual average, even if we get nothing else this year. We already are, so that's great news. That's the first time in, well, I know this would have been the 4th year of below 30 inches of rain, if it had turned out to be another dry year. So we're really happy that it didn't. From the last since March 14th, between March 14th and April 17th, we've been producing an average of about 63,500 gallons per day of water, which is just a slight increase over the last period. We did have the treatment plant off for 4 days during this reporting period, basically for operational reasons. We just really don't run the plant when the creek is too turbid. So we just rely on our water storage. And water consumption's been averaging about 57,600 gallons per day, which is a decline from consumption was about 60,650 during the prior reporting period when it was drier in February. Both of the reservoirs are still full and spilling. And so, for this point, that we're in good shape for this calendar year. We don't know what next winter will bring, but definitely good shape for this year. So that's great news. In your binder are the current consumption and water sales statistics. And it just shows for the last couple of billing cycles that water consumption did go up on the back and the front and back of the mesa, but downtown we had a decline in consumption, again, probably because how wet it was, but we also read the meters quite early in the, it probably wasn't a full 3-month period because the staff read the meters a little bit earlier. So that, I think that number's a little bit deceptive, but it was definitely low consumption. The next item is the 2022-23 winter storm update. And I'll just briefly describe our application to FEMA for disaster funding. That's been quite a elaborate document intensive process. And basically what we're seeking to do is get reimbursed for the costs we will be incurring to clean up as a result of the storms. We've got a number of trees down on the Arroyo Hondo access road and a small slip out, landslide is really giving it too much credit. It's more of a slip out of material, but it's enough that we can't get our trucks through. And then of course we have a number of trees that went down on the bike path. And so both of those are eligible to be our costs to be reimbursed for that. And we also can get reimbursed for the overtime that we incurred during the storm response, the declared disaster period, which is from the end of December through January 31st. And we actually had a lot of overtime. So that's going to be great to get that reimbursed because the guys were out at the plant at all times of night and running the generator down at the sewer system and a number of other things, working really long hours. And so that was tough on them and, really appreciated by me and I know the community, but it's nice that the district will get reimbursed for some of that. So what we're doing is we just had a site inspection. We've had various meetings either by phone or in person. And then today was a site inspection where the FEMA inspectors went out with our crew to literally measure and document everything that we're going to be removing off the road. They aren't going to pay for the entire trees to be dealt with that came down that are over the path, but the sections that are blocking the path. And then we persuaded them that some width about that because of the upgrade project to be able to do the work to upgrade the path. So we will be able to get that. And then it looks like they agreed with us that we have a tree that is leaning over a section of the path and they are agreeing to pay for us taking that down. So it's still in process, but I put some materials in your binder so you can kind of see the sort of scrutiny that goes on during an application like this. I am going to ask you to approve the CEQA notice of exemption that I prepared that is basically, there's a section under CEQA when you have a declared disaster event that it's exempt for that reason from CEQA. So I'll ask for a vote on that and then we'll get that posted ideally tomorrow, filed over at the county. And then we are, with regard to the trees that are down over the bike path, we've solicited 2 proposals so far. They're quite close to each other, one $8,200 and one $7,200. And so I'm presuming that we're going to go with the lower bid. There's no reason not to. They're not different in kind. And then so far we just have one proposal for the work that we need to do up the Arroyo Hondo. And that is really going to depend on whether we can use mechanized equipment or not. We always work really closely with the park and as their often partner Point Blue with regard to doing surveys to make sure they're doing a survey right now to see if there's any spotted owls in the vicinity. And if that is the case, then we would not be able to use mechanized equipment until the nesting and fledging period is concluded. I think that might not be till August. I'd have to get the specifics from the park scientists, but so then we'll have to make a decision whether we do have the work done by hand or wait. And doing it by hand is almost 3 times as expensive, as you might have seen from the materials in your binders. So we'll just wait and see. We're waiting to see what we hear back from the park, and whether you're supposed to have the work done within a specific period of time for FEMA, although they told us that they would give us an extension if we have a good reason, like the reason that we might have, that the park doesn't want us. We might, if we just don't know, we have to do a balancing consideration of whether we can continue to operate, without that direct access to our facilities up there. I mean, the guys who've been hiking are taking an e-bike up there to be able to look at, to be able to check on our catchments. But so that's what's going on overall with that. And it's been an interesting process of the FEMA folks coming out and deciding, wow, Bolinas seems like a really great place. So that's, they've appreciated their work environment, as we always do too. But I think that's all that I wanted to cover about that. I did want to get a vote of approval of the CEQA notice of exemption.
Okay, and I get a motion from someone to approve the CEQA notice of exemption.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 4-0.
Okay. Any questions about that? Okay. A short update on the tank replacement, pipeline replacement project. That's again a project up at the water storage tank site where we're just basically replacing in kind and in place the existing piping that's comes up to the tank site between the 2 tanks, and then that goes into the distribution system. And we just keep finding little things we want to tweak about it each time we look at the plans. And so so we met with the engineer again, and he's making one more revision, and then we'll finalize the bid documents. And I expect that we'll actually go out to bid in May, within bids received ideally by the June meeting for the board to evaluate and approve. And then if we'd like to get the project in during the late summer or fall, but we could be up against contractor schedules. I mean, it's going to depend on their availability. So if we don't get good bids, this isn't an emergency. We would probably wait and rebid it at the beginning of the year when the contractors are all setting their schedules. So we'll see what we can get in the way of bids, but that's the current plan. Any questions? Okay. An update on our groundwater wells project. Again, this is, as you all know, we made proposals to we applied for permits from our regulators at the State Water Board, the Division of Drinking Water, to add 2 groundwater wells as emergency sources of supply to the water system. We did that back in the summer of 2021, and we were approved by our regulators, and we then applied to the California Department of Water Resources for grant funding to install the facilities that we need. And we received the grant funding, and we're in the process of buttoning down that documentation. And then at the end of last year, in early December, we had reached out to the county to say, is there anything we need from you? And we couldn't get a response. And anyway, unfortunately, we kept asking, but about 3.5 months went by. And then we had a meeting with the county folks. It was on March 23rd, after the last board meeting. And they've concluded that they are going to require coastal permits for the project. So as part of that, we need to do biological assessments. And this will be, so we have 2 sites. One is the Wharf Well site. And fortunately, the owner of that property, who's licensing us the well, the Community Land Trust, they had a biological assessment of the property done in connection with their development. And the county has said that they would honor that if the land trust would be willing to, allow it to be used for that purpose, which they said, no problem. They have to, the biologists have to come back and make sure that site conditions haven't changed, but they don't have to do the whole rigmarole again. And then on the, with the resource recovery well, that well actually has a coastal permit, but as an irrigation well, and I'm not sure whether they're going to be willing to let us just amend that permit or they're going to require a new one. But at the very least, we will need to evaluate, we'll need to have the site where we're going to put the treatment facilities evaluated. And, what we applied and have been planning for since we started this project was to locate the water tank and a small UV treatment facility and chlorination, it doesn't have a big footprint at Mesa Park, because the raw water line from the well comes right up on the east side of the parking lot and goes behind and goes to the tanks at Mesa Park behind. And so we were just going to intercept the line there. But we're also considering a different site right now. Mesa Park kind of asked us to, and we want to be good neighbors, obviously. And also there's the potential for the post office to also be there, as I'll be talking about in a minute. So we are evaluating whether we would be able to move it over to be basically at the lab building near the sewer ponds. So we could still intercept the line, and then the facilities would be over there, and we could still then tie into the distribution system on Mesa Road. That site's a lot more environmentally constrained though. So I'm not sure. We will make the decision based on what's going to work and what would upset the apple cart, because we've been approved regulatorily for the other site. And so we don't want, but we want to, I told the Mesa Park Board, what Mark Lukanic was talking with, I said, we'll make a good faith effort to try and see if we can locate it at their site.
I have also spoken to him separately and tried to assure him that this is probably the way it's going to be, and that it's to be fine. So
Yeah.
I don't want you to deviate from that, but that's enough on that. So
Yeah, it'd only be if it's to our advantage, cost-free, not a problem with the regulators and all of that.
right,
Yeah.
all of it. Okay.
Oh.
Just a super quick question. Can you give me an idea of how big that footprint would be? Pretty small. I mean,
It's about, we should know this.
20 by 60?
I want it 20 by 50, is it 20 by 50? I
20
think.
by 50 or
Yeah,
60.
yeah, that's what I think. 20 by, might be 60 by, because we're having some fencing that we have to secure it so that the fence, that's the fence footprint, because we have to get around everything.
yeah, just trying to picture it. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's for both sites.
Yeah.
But so what's up for decision now is this, I think very unfortunate fact that we have to spend more money because what our engineer recommended is, well, we need the biological site assessment, and then we also need to push through the coastal permit. I have, pushed through coastal permits for our projects before, and it's, it's time consuming. And our engineer has worked before on projects for Stinson Beach County Water District and had the coastal permitting and environmental work handled by a woman named Leslie Lazzarotti at, it turns out, WRA, in a kind of different component of their practice there, because she's got this experience getting the coastal permitting through. And, what we basically got is where we'd have a cost for the wharf well with the bioassessment and coastal permitting and project management, $17,000. And then we've got $2,550 for the wharf well. I think in each case, the coastal permitting was about either $12,000 or $14,000. So now you know how much money you've been saving when I've been doing it. but so I don't know. I'm very torn about what to recommend. Obviously I'm capable of doing it. It's a matter of just workload, and we're a little bit concerned about timing because the grant funding, we had been planning to put the facilities in this summer and fall. And this is now going to delay us by 3 to 5 months. So what do you guys think?
I think if you have somebody available who can jump right on it, we should hire that person to do it. You already have a full plate with all these other things, so
Mhm.
I think that would be, assuming someone's available to do it, that's my idea.
Well, this would be WRA, right?
Yeah, the Leslie Lazarati, yeah.
We've worked with them before on something, I think, right?
I have not worked with her before ever, and and it's really the recommendation of our consulting engineer who said she was very impressive and effective for Stinson Beach getting their coastal permits through for their wells.
All right, I'll hear the rest of the board. Andrew, what do you think?
Does the biological assessment, is it just the Mesa Park property or the lab? Like, what are the extents of it?
Yeah, we're basically gonna have to make a decision about that before she gets started. We will have to figure out how we're gonna do that. As it turns out, we're having an inspection by our regulators on Friday, the same people that authorize the wells. So we might just ask them then, would this cause you to say we got to do this all over again? Then it's like a no-go. Then we're not going to do that. If they consider it, or so we'll make a decision and then have them evaluate, or she might also, there might be immediate indicators that the site near the lab building wouldn't be good for various reasons,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah,
quite close proximity to the sewer facility.
I was just asking because I know the WRA is looking at other areas near there for assessments, and I didn't know if we could like roll that together or something.
Yeah, I mean, when they do these assessments, what they have to do is they have to look at the specific project proposed. It doesn't matter, it could be on the exact same property.
Mhm.
And one project might be build a house, and another one might be dig a swimming pool.
Yeah.
And then it's completely different biological assessment because of the nature, they're evaluating different species, different considerations based on what your project is. And so I think that there's like an economy of scale with the familiarity of the property and the general knowledge about the biological diversity database, what species are in the vicinity, what, all of that. But then the specifics about looking at what is your project and how are you proposing to do it? And can you do it in a way that will not have a significant impact on the environment? Because if you can't, and you need to have mitigation, then you're in a much more elaborate environmental analysis.
And Grace, what do you, go ahead.
I would say that Jennifer's plate is so full that it would be good to hire somebody to do it. Would be my recommendation.
I was gonna ask, you feel the same way?
I kind of reluctantly agree, but
You've got,
right, Kevin didn't get to say, maybe he's gonna.
Well, we heard a little bit about WRA earlier from Green Expression, somebody who maybe hasn't had a great, fast experience with them. So.
We
that
have
could
had
possibly work.
multiple prior contracts with WRA that have been completely satisfactory.
So we have worked with them before, but
Oh, yeah.
not on the biological assessment.
Yes, no, yes, we have.
But we have.
They've evaluated for our fire fuel reduction projects, both of the ones that we did in the Ute Grove, as well as the irrigation pond, the new irrigation pump station at the sewer ponds. I think those are the three, and I'd have to think about whether there was any other, but those three at a minimum that we've been with different, it's a big firm, so with different people each time.
I guess I had a similar thought with Andrew. Is there any bundling, any cost savings here? Because we're looking at 3 different projects, all within about a mile of each other. I understand that they're different considerations, different projects, but travel time. There's only one site visit, I think, for each project. So, could those be, I don't know, has that been discussed with them since we have 3?
Yeah, and they've already built that into the fee, like Leslie conferred with Matt Richmond and Scott Yeager, who are doing the work on the bike path. And then also we got the biological assessment from the land trust. And so that brings down the cost. And then you just get to the point where you have to look at the specifics of the project and how, and exactly what you're proposing to do and how it will be installed. Yeah.
Okay.
And then the main cost in both of them really is the coastal permit application and putting that through. So
They didn't really break that down. How much of that is the actual permit fees versus their time to prepare it, you know? I mean, you've gone through this before, maybe you have an estimate or. They didn't really break that down. Number.
I don't, and I don't have it right in front of me, but it might, I gotta look that. I don't remember if the proposal excludes the permitting fees. That's just, I don't know if it's inclusive of the permit fee. Did you read that?
I
I didn't
think
read
it's
the,
just the.
Just their
submitting
work?
And gathering the information.
That was.
to
in the thought
Provide
too,
the.
yeah,
okay,
permit. It's not.
but I
fees.
didn't-
yeah, and I'm sorry
Do
that
you need
I,
a formal motion from the board, or can we just as a consensus not tell you that you're authorized to employ whoever you think can get this work done?
I think there should be a vote from the board to, let me see, look at it. What I would ask you for is, to proceed to work with WRA to ensure, that we have proposals with scope of work acceptable to the district for the overall purpose of completing any necessary biological assessment and doing the coastal permitting work. And I'll look at the fee issue. I apologize. I just didn't have that in my mind. And we usually get a discount as a public agency, but I'll see what that's going to be.
Okay, I think I'm just gonna try to summarize or condense that motion to a proposal to hire someone from WRA for the biological assessment and to provide the work necessary to get the permits filed with the appropriate agencies. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm reading through this small print real quick, wondering about their,
Okay.
the timeline for their work, since we've heard that. The
Yeah,
deliverables have been coming in. Can we put something in their contract that says? I mean, since time is of the essence for this well project with the
Yeah.
grant funding, we put a timeline on this contract. you
Oh,
think?
for
Two-
sure.
2 months. I mean, I think that what I remember reading is work can commence when the contract is signed, but I don't remember seeing any sort of a timeline.
Yeah, we will, and then I think I put in my original email stuff in there that to soliciting the proposal where we tried to make it clear that time was of the essence for sure. And usually what we do is this proposal will then be an exhibit to our standard form of contract for professional services, and that will have a deadline in it. And your point's well taken that we need it ASAP.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a proposed deadline in mind?
I mean, I think Jennifer's got the timeline in her head, probably more about the grant funding and,
Yeah.
being shovel ready by summer, fall, like you said, so.
Yeah, we will work on it with that in
So
mind.
that's-
We'll get a
that's
deadline
it.
with that in mind. Yeah, thank you.
Right. So I outlined the terms of the motion. Is there a motion then to grant that? Does not somebody want to make the motion?
Yeah, I would move to hire WRA to do the biological assessment and permits based on their proposal in a timely manner for Kevin's comment.
Okay, very good. Is there a second?
I second that.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 4-0. All right, Jen, continue with the manager's report.
Okay, so the next one is, I have a lot of WRA stuff going on here. So the next one is, at the last board meeting, I reported that, we had this back and forth. We had Marin Water approach us about the possibility of obtaining eucalyptus trees, the root ball and 30-foot stick of the trees, of which they need about 100 for a salmon habitat restoration project in Lagunitas Creek. And we then had the meeting that I referenced in Community Expression about, it was about that project as well as Bolinas Eucalyptus project. And it was clear, that a biological site assessment would be going to be needed if that marine water, the project with marine water would move forward. And, we had a lot of public discussion and public input, and John referenced it as well, but some passionate concern, about monarch habitat and the taking down of that many trees. So that we, I brought the project back up in March and said, Marin Water's still prepared to go forward, but And they have the money to do all of, all of the actual tree work and tree transport. But their management determined that because as landowner, they want us to be responsible for the environmental and permitting work. And so at the last meeting, you asked me to go ahead and solicit a proposal for the biological work. And at that time I said, and I'm happy to get other ones if you want. At that time I said, well, it kind of makes sense that we already have, WRA has been looking at this property. And so again, it's a different, yes, it's the same property. Yes, it's many of the same issues, but it is a different project. That this one would be ground disturbance. It would be, it's different. So it has to be analyzed from a different perspective. And with the same caveat that we'd be looking to ensure that the project could proceed in a manner that did not have a significant impact on the environment, which would mean it would need to be documented that it's not in any environmentally sensitive habitat area or affecting any threatened or endangered species. And so we envision somewhat of an iterative process that we'd be meeting with Marin Water. They'd tell us which trees they want and some backup trees. We'd evaluate that if it became clear that those were going to be problematic. And when I say problematic, I mean that from a permitting standpoint, we'd be required to do mitigation, which is expensive. We'd then say, well, are there some other trees? Because are there trees that would work for your project that we could authorize that would not have that consequence, that aren't? And so that's what it's a bit of an iterative process. And that's what's envisioned, is that what we would be trying to do for this project, because we can be Marin Water can be selective to some extent about which trees they are, that would be how we recommend proceeding. And again, this is completely up to the board whether you remain interested in it. But it would be undertaking, this stage, and then also the permitting that would be required. I may be missing something, but I thought that I saw somewhere along the way in documents the Bolinas Eucalyptus Group had, I thought there was a statement of the county somewhere where if you can show that your project is not in an ESHA or ESHA buffer zone, then the coastal permitting may not be required. Am I remembering that right? I thought there was something in a document somewhere that I saw but anyway, so if that could also be the goal, if we could say we're simply removing this, there's no environmental impact, and they would conclude that would be okay, and a coastal permit wouldn't be necessary. Great, but I don't know that we could still be required to get a permit, or the Coastal Commission might step in and say you have to, but.
So at this point, are you looking for a feeling from the board that we're interested in continuing with this project and whatever it's going to take?
Yeah,
Okay.
because that would be the next step. And if you want to, you can either decide it tonight, you can think about it and decide it later. But the Marin Water, when they first approached us, and I think kind of didn't really know what they were getting into in terms of the coastal zone issues, because a lot of their work is not in the coastal zone. Coastal zone is very different in terms of the environmental protections and the coastal permitting. Frankly, I think they were a little scared off at the beginning, and then they, came back and realized, no, we're okay with this, but we need you to kind of handle all this permitting because we're not familiar with it. And plus you're the landowner. And then, but what they had wanted to be coming in this summer, like August and September, to get the trees down. Then they would lie there. They would be there for a year to dry out, and they were explaining that they remove all the organic matter off the root system, and they have them lay fallow for a year so that they're dead. They know they're not going to resprout in the creek, and then they transport them all to the creek. And what they're probably envisioning now is that there's no way that, my personal opinion is there's no way we could be ready by then. I think the amount of work that would need to be done to be ready would put this to next year, but they said that they would still be interested, they would still be able to do the project if they were able to take the trees down next year and then remove them the following year. I mean, we can still try for this year, but
Yeah,
I think it's
I
already April.
I mean, take consent of grace, what do you think?
I'd like to continue.
Keep the project going?
Yeah.
Andrew?
I have a lot of questions and I'm obviously not a biologist, but are they paying for your time to work on this? Is Marin Water paying for your time?
No.
So I'm a little shaky about that. It doesn't seem like the best use of your time and then the BCPUD's time. I also am just having heard from these the eucalyptus project folks about like how do 100 trees get selected? Doesn't that somehow need reports, and how does that impact the stand of trees? And I feel like it's opening a can of worms with like, well, if we remove some trees, does that make other trees more vulnerable? Does that make the road more dangerous? Does that put us in more liability? Does it fall on the bike path? Can we remove trees that are the most dangerous for those reasons, for this the salmon habitat project? That's a
I
lot.
think all of that would
It's
be
more
encompassed
questions,
in
but-
the analysis, yeah.
It's, yeah. So I just doesn't seem like the best use of our time. And then another question is like, how does this tie into the bike path resurfacing project?
Well, in terms of our time, to get 100 trees removed is a pretty good payment. To, you know what I mean? For it's hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
So I've thought it's worth it from, I'm not meaning to be facetious.
No,
I mean,
no.
I've literally thought it's worth it for that reason. And that, but all of the questions you're raising are appropriate. And if the biological work or, I mean, certainly, I know John's going to be interested in, we're going to have a lot of eyes on it. And if it starts looking like, this isn't a good idea, when we say no, and then we're not contractually committing to anything other than spending the money to figure it out.
Yeah.
And then,
Which we need to do anyway to take take any trees down, regardless of whether we work with Marin Water.
Well,
Is that not
it, well, it's sort of the thing that's different. The thing that's different about this one is not only the number of trees, which is significant, it's also the idea that the root balls would be taken out, because I'm not a biologist either, but it's my understanding that the interconnectedness of the roots. And could you be, I mean, it's going to take people with a lot of initials behind their names to be telling us, whether this would not be a good idea, or if you choose the right trees, it'll work. So that it's definitely not, it's definitely complicated.
Yeah. What do you think, Kevin?
Well, I was hoping we could piggyback on the biological assessment that you guys have undertaken, but it sounds like, again, maybe it's a slightly different project. If you're just trying to cut some trees down versus harvest them with the root balls intact, that may be a different beat.
It probably is, because you're tearing up earth.
Yeah.
But then again, we'll be grinding out stumps, which is
Yeah.
almost as impactful. So the difference is not that huge. As far as destabilizing nearby trees, that's the thing. And thinking about it, I don't know what they've thought about it, but the top of the job, up towards the firehouse, that's a place you can get 100 trees. Those trees are more. They have more lateral branching, they're more stable trees, they were thinned earlier in their life, so they're not these top heavy beam poles. And you could get 100 trees out of a part of that job, and then maybe with a little weight reduction of the edge trees, but then become the edge trees, you can stabilize them until our job happens. But in the heart of the job, like where most of the blowdowns were, if you pulled another 100 trees out of in there, all hell will break loose.
Yeah.
This year was not a one-off. This year was the first heavy winter in a long time. The trees' root systems are degraded from the years of drought. They've gotten bigger since the last time we had that time. Okay, that was an exceptional wind. But in what we used to consider typical winters, we got winds like that. And it'll take less wind in a few years than it took this time, because the trees are going to get bigger, their roots are going to get less stable and it would not be a good idea to pop 100 trees out in the middle of that job.
The other
Yeah.
one, the other location, I don't know if you're as familiar with it, is below where one of Mickey's fields is. So it's way over, it's towards
Yeah.
bordering with the Roosh property, and there's kind of a meadow below, and then like that's another potential area.
Yeah,
where
that
some
could work.
trees could come out.
It sounds like there's support to continue with the project.
But
Yeah.
to me, it seems like the project isn't quite defined yet. There's so many stakeholders here. We've got public safety, that's, for me, that's a big one. We've got Monarch overwintering site. We've got Marin Waters, their salmon restoration project, their requirements for specific trees.
Yeah.
And then the health of the forest in general, and like Andrew said, ramifications of wind and all kinds of stuff. So it seems like to do a proper biological assessment, we need to figure out if it's even possible for all those concerns to meet, right? I mean, how can we engage for a proper assessment if we don't, do we even have a sense that that's even possible?
I think you just have to take it one by one. I mean, we're having the trees assessed for immediate hazards. That just, that we do that periodically for the trees on our land. And then, the Marin Water project, I think is very specific. I think we could maybe also, it would be great. I know, John, that Matt offered to have a conversation, and maybe there's a way to, to be able to collaborate as well. But I think that it's, I think there'll be efficiencies over time, but I think that, I mean, frankly, the way I had thought about it from a totally utilitarian perspective was, if we can get 100 trees down for free in the next year, that sounds good. And, which was why, it kind of, and I know some people don't even like that. And I respect that point of view, but I'm just, from the property management and safety considerations, all these things, I thought, well, let's definitely see if that can happen. And that's on that, but it's on that timeline because of when they have the funding and when they need to get the trees in the creek. But it's up to you, it's a board decision.
I know, and that's why they have to give you direction.
Yeah.
So you're definite, yes, I mean.
Yes, I think that, we're also looking at 100 trees that aren't producing leaf fall that we then have to get the CCC in to clear away so that we don't have all that fire hazard underneath them. I mean, I too think it's a big bargain.
Mhm.
Safety concern, all other concerns. Obviously, I think I'd really like to see the biological assessment.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that too.
yeah,
Gotta start somewhere.
okay.
So are they assessing all the trees in the stand, or they, no, they're doing 100 that Marin Water has chosen?
Yeah,
And
it'll be very specific, and there's some sort of diameter requirement, how do you certain, I'm losing my mind about the width of
Over
it.
20 and under 30.
Yeah,
is
right,
Okay.
thank you.
Basically,
Right.
Yeah, so they wanted a particular size tree, and so, and I would welcome you participating in one of
that
the,
too, yeah.
looking around,
I was gonna say,
so.
do you have any initial sense if there's any overlap between the trees that they might want and the trees that your group is considering?
Yeah, there's massive overlap
Okay.
but it's all about strategizing on which trees, so you don't create a
Yeah.
vulnerability to the neighboring trees and create a bigger problem than we already have. But it can be done,
Yeah,
we just have to give it some thought.
all right, I'm gonna return to, go ahead.
No,
Return to the agenda. I think that we've given you direction, Jennifer, to proceed with it, and I think that there's a good analysis of the pros and cons of this project. Then it'll come back to us and we'll have to make the ultimate decision based on.
But can I get a vote to proceed with to get WRA on board to do the work? Is that, are you guys okay with that?
Sure, okay. Anybody want to make that motion?
I so move.
Okay, is there a second?
a second.
All in favor? Aye,
Aye.
4-0. Right, continue.
Okay, with regard to our bike path project, I had thought, we did receive the engineering proposal, but the engineer couldn't be here tonight. And so I'd like to defer this to the May meeting. And then I also wanted to be able to I realize that we also have a couple of board members that haven't been involved in all of the past discussions of this project. And so what I'd like to also I'll put together a short summary of kind of the project and how it evolved and how we are where we are, so that bringing you guys up to speed.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
But were there any questions? I mean, if anyone has any questions about the engineering proposal when you're waiting over the next month that you want me to convey to the engineer to be ready to answer, that would be appreciated. And I have some comments from Don Smith, who, as you know, he's not on the board, but remains very passionate about the project. And so he's already given me some feedback that's really good. So,
All right.
okay. I also in your binders is the status report that we submitted to the California Department of Parks, the California State Parks, as our grantor in the project, just a really short status report. Then moving on to the Bolinas Beach groin. As you know, or maybe not all of you know, but for everyone's edification, the BCPUD is the sort of owner and name of the groin. It was a project installed decades ago, a lot of hard work by community members, and the district is actually the lessee of the structure that's in the ground there from the California State Lands Commission. And we had an inspection of it done recently. We didn't even need an inspection really to tell us that the hand railing is falling apart, and this winter storm really eliminated it. We've put a very temporary structure in there right now that Billy Cummings managed to get together, and it looks great, but it's not going to last very long. And so we have a proposal for a fabricated railing to basically replace exactly in kind what was there. And so in your binders, we've worked with West Marin Welding before. They're the firm that fabricated the anchor chairs that were part of the earthquake retrofit system on the when we did the East Tank. So we've worked with them and know their work. And so essentially they're really trying to help us out by giving us a good deal where for about $14,400, we get the entire railing system fabricated, and then also the basically help getting it installed. Our guys would be working on it as well, but what's envisioned is, what would be there would be essentially, what was originally there with a real solid metal railing. And we have the funds already available to pay for this because we have a maintenance fund that we maintain for this purpose that has it's coming up on $200,000 in it. So we have plenty of money in there to cover this repair. And then I'm also looking into engineers to give us a proposal. There was work that Ron Noble's inspection report revealed that should be done on a maintenance level for the groin. And so I think I finally got some engineers lined up to give us a proposal for that. I don't know if they'll be ready by the next meeting, but that's to come. But right now, it's just really been an immediate safety issue to have that railing in such bad.
Yeah,
You
don't need authorization from the board to spend that money to do this.
I'd just like a vote to do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Because we'd be taking it out of our designated fund and.
All right, well, for board members, I would tell you that a long time ago, there was a proposal to build a groin there that could then allow for the beaches to get built up with sand because it stopped the flow up and down, which it seemed to do. And we got, I believe, a grant from the state that they pay for it if we promise to maintain it. And so we developed an item in our budget that is, we set aside a certain amount of money every year to, maintain the groin. So that gives you a background for why we have the money and why we have to do it.
Right.
All right. So is there a motion then to fix the groin as proposed?
I move to fix the groin as proposed.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. 4-0. All right,
Just curious what the coating is. Is it a galvanized or is it a powder coated or will it be painted? Because it says that the coating isn't included. Just curious what's best for that salty marine environment.
I believe it's gonna be when we. It gets dipped in something.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's what,
Okay.
my scientific explanation.
Zinc bath.
Yeah, that,
Yeah.
it, the gate, at the ramp, you know, at the Brighton gate, that one we had dipped in the same material. Yeah, I think that's what's being done, but, I haven't been intimately involved in, Blake, Miller has been really doing a great job getting this proposal and planning the whole thing with this guy to keep it a low cost item. So, Blake would know, and I'm sorry that I don't have the answer.
It'll last a long time, and if it
Yes.
needs maintaining over time, if it's painted, if it's something that we can do periodically to keep it up, or, you know.
I know it's expressly being coated with something for because of the marine environment, and
yeah,
I'm just not sure what
No
it
worries.
is. No.
Thanks.
Thanks, sorry about that. A really quick update on our Surfers Overlook Bluff evaluation project. We are, the engineers, geotechnical, the guys came out, they were here on April 13th, last Thursday. And they did a really close evaluation of the bluff to document changed conditions from their 2011 assessment. And they also looked really hard and are documenting the condition of the wooden seawall that's down below. This again, for just quick edification of board members, new board members, which is the, you know, they've obviously been concerned forever about Terrace Avenue at Surfers Overlook. We used to have a high pressure water line there, and we relocated that out of the way back in 2013. We did a lot of work looking at whether it would be possible to do really a full bluff stabilization project that's similar to what's been done in Santa Cruz. That's very costly, many millions. And in the meantime, have been trying to ensure that the road level retaining walls up at the top, as well as the seawall down below, stay in good condition. The county, because the community, and huge credit goes out to people like Ralph Kamicha and Ken Masterton and Rudy Ferris and others who are part of the Service Overlook Committee, really did a huge fundraising in town. We got the money to install the repair of the road level retaining walls, and then some. There's money remaining, and so using that money, just about the proposal here for this update is about $30,000 that'll be paid for from those funds. We're evaluating now we're evaluating the seawall down below and what options there are to fortify, or, you know, basically repair it in place, essentially, because that wall has been worth its weight in gold. It was installed in 1967 by the county. So it's also a county structure. So we're taking the similar approach as we did up above. We'll figure out the problem. We'll tell them how to solve it. We'll help raise the money, and then we'll ask them to do it. And so, it's just kind of the best way that we can to be able to get it done. But there's the seawall itself, which it's in two kind of pieces. It's below ground, below sand level, and then there's kind of an offset, and then there's the above sand level, and there's riprap below and behind it. And that entire system, the engineers believe has done an absolutely phenomenal job over decades of dissipating the wave action that hits that bluff and protecting the toe, so that the erosion overall of that bluff over decades has been considerably less than other bluffs around Bolinas, the Little Mesa or the Big Mesa. So we'll be getting a report soon with the results of their analysis. And they also had the perfect staff member, Evan Kahn, that was down there with them, because they figured out together that Evan has a drone, and there's a particular software program that you can use to effectively, if you take kind of drone photos, but panoramics of the bluff, and then it can, the program can convert the pixels or whatever into a three-dimensional drawing that then you can periodically go back and redo and see the movement. And initially at the beginning of their site visit, they had been telling me about this and about how we could contract it out. And at the end of the meeting, when they'd spent the day with Evan, they said, you don't need to hire someone to contract this out. Evan's going to be able to do it for you. And so, and he's excited about that. So we're looking into getting that software, but I think it'd be super helpful, just for a lot of other things that we do, to be able to have that ability to create those images and monitor things like that over time. So, that's that update. Super quick, not a lot on, I'll just go super quickly on operations that we're preparing for an inspection of our water system. Our regulators will be here on Friday. We're working on our annual report that's due on May 13th. Last month, we had the sampling that we conducted that's required, that were part of randomly selected water system to be tested for PFAS. And so those, we had the first samples taken last month, and we don't have the results yet, but as soon as we know, we'll be communicating them. On the sewer side of operations, getting ready for spray season. We're also working on transitioning to a new statewide order that applies to all sewer systems in the state, that we need to be covered under that new order by June 4th. And it's going to mean a lot of changes, and we need to do update of our sewer system management plan and a lot of other things over the next few years to come into compliance with that new order. And then I'm going to talk about the customer laterals separately in just a minute, but I also then have an update about our long-standing requests that we've had out with our regulators to see if we can extend the sewer system to Canyon Road to be able to serve the folks there. The last two properties on Canyon Road have asked, it's been outstanding for a couple of years to try to get on the sewer system. And we had a meeting with our regional board regulators on March 29th, and it was myself and our engineer from West Yost, Catherine Gies. They had a lot of questions about our treatment facility, and it resulted in the suggestion that they'll come out for an inspection. So they're coming on May 3rd. We'll be having an inspection. But they're open. I think they're amenable to allowing us to add the connections. They understand that the homeowners are in a hard spot, and but they're also concerned because so I talked about an order that's a statewide order that a few minutes ago that we have to come into compliance with. That's applicable to the collection system. This is a treatment system. They also want to move us on to a new permit for the treatment system. They're trying to do a kind of one-size-fits-all permitting approach for small wastewater systems that discharge to land, but everybody's different. So a lot of the standard conditions that they have in the new order, we are not in compliance with. And the main thing has to do with what happens for us when we have big rain event years. And what our analysis shows, that if we have a 10-year rain event, which is on average 50 inches of rain would be a 10-year rain event, we have to what we call discharge out of season, meaning that we need to spray, the levels are coming up in our ponds and we can't let them spill. And so it's preferable that we're spraying, but it's not when we're allowed to do so. So that's rendering us out of compliance with our permit, and that's bad. They don't want that happening. And then we've on our rainfall data, we calculated that a 25-year rain event for Bolinas is 64 inches. A 50-year rain event is 73 inches, and a 100-year rain event is 85 inches. So that the order as it stands says you have to be able to handle a 100-year rain event.
No.
Yeah. So we're like right around the 10-year rain event.
Really?
So there's a number of options so we're gonna, we'll be it'll be a negotiated proceeding of what they're gonna say and what we're gonna be required to do. General options are build more storage. Or, if you picture it, this year with getting almost 40 inches of rain, that's this much, the ponds it's this much is rain, right? 40 inches. And so you can see why the higher rain event years, the ponds fill a lot more quickly. So one option is to build more storage. Another option would be to add a disinfection component to our treatment process so that then you're not constrained in the same way as to when you can spray. The reason we're constrained, they don't want us spraying in between November and May, is that it's when you have runoff off the property just from seasonal rain events, and they don't want you spraying and then having that run off the property. So, but if it's disinfected, there's more allowance with that. So we'll see. So we're having that discussion. In the meantime, I think they're persuaded that, okay, we can let the Canyon Road people on because that is not a tipping point. Adding those 7 connections, because we can limit their water use, that's no tipping point on these rain year. It's the rain year events that are the issue. And so the staff members we spoke with are going, as I understand it, they're going to recommend, I don't think they're neutral. I think they're actually going to actively recommend to the executive management team at the regional board that we be allowed to add the connections.
Okay.
But we will not know until that happens, which I believe is going to happen in May.
Okay.
And then it's a question of working with the customers to pay for it and work that out. So that's the update there. And then quickly on the sewer lateral repairs, I'm actually very regret to say that your stern enforcement directive worked. And I regret that because I don't like to have to treat our customers that way. But I'm just telling people that being nice didn't work and being mean worked. And so,
You can blame us.
Spare the rod,
Yeah.
spoil the
I did.
customer.
You saw the letters. It says the board has directed me to. No,
Well,
but
so-
yeah, anyway, so where we stand is we had 11 customers that we had identified with damaged laterals, and I think that we've got 3 of them that we ended up finding that they were relatively minor issues. And at this point, I think really virtually everybody else is I mean, there enormous uptick of efforts. We're getting calls from all kinds of plumbers that are coming out and getting videos and identifying where things are. So people have taken those letters very seriously, and I feel confident that we're now on the right track.
You were on the right track.
I know.
It's a slower train, that's all.
Yeah, that was really slow. Quickly about the post office.
Yeah, I wanted to.
Yeah.
So I've been involved working with, there's some community members that are doing just fantastic work. I think everybody knows John Borg has been very prominently and passionately advocating for the community and for the return of our post office. There's another subgroup of people, and I'm sure more people are involved. I don't mean to be failing to give people credit, but I know Melinda Griffith, Einor Sawyer, and Steve Mattson have been very involved in putting together a site plan, senior binders for the location of a temporary post office. It would be in a portable, the kind of retrofitted portable. Everything that you're seeing on paper, they have vetted and they know it can be done.
Okay.
They've been in the field, they've done the measurements, they've called the portable company. They know it can be retrofitted. So everything in their proposal is doable. And they are also putting together a budget. And then that is going to be conveyed to the Postal Service to see if they'll consider this as the, temporary location of a post office. And in the meantime, and there was a lot presented if people attended the recent community meeting by the Bolinas Civic Group. They presented the proposal there as well.
This proposal.
Melinda and Einor. Yeah, they did. and Steve Mattson. And then for now, I actually didn't put this as a item you need to vote on, but I told John Borg, John asked if he could put up a sign, you know, where we've had the water conservation sign on our property, right at the entrance to town, at the intersection of Mesa and Olima Bolinas Road. A sign about, and it's in the mock-up is in your binders, but it's sort of one of these number of days that we've been without a post office as a way to keep the issue alive and to keep it front and center in the community discussion. And I've been very stingy about our allowance of anybody to use that place for signage, because I want it kind of reserved for important district signage, but I told him I was willing to allow, you know, I thought this was an important community issue, and as long as the board had no objection, which I wasn't expecting, but that I would tell him he could put it up. Is there any opposition?
I think it's a fabulous
Yeah.
idea.
Okay.
I like
Feel okay with it?
I'm curious in general, what's the policy of putting signage up there? Does the board vote on it? I just want to set a precedent where
Right.
someone feels slighted because their cause is less.
Anybody can come to the board. They've come to me before for things, I'm not more on the kind of bake sale or yard sale level, and I've said no. But if you would like me to just routinely say the board has to approve it, I'm happy to do that. I've said I've allowed the fire department. And then that's been the only other entity that's we've let you post there. It's not a control thing. It's just trying
No,
to
I
keep it
know.
as a,
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think the spot should be seen as a place for information from the BPUD, because
Yeah.
it's just the perfect. I don't want it to be, become one that people start to look past because it's just another,
Right.
you know, whatever. Anyway, that was the thought that I had. Also, I just think, not that I'm opposed to it, but I think the sign is preaching to the choir. Because everybody who's coming and sees that sign, we know we don't have any mail because we all live here, so of course we don't. And oh yeah, it's another day, you're right. But on the other hand, it gives you a way to keep it focused and, you know, in its own way shames the post office, right? And that's really sort of I think the sign isn't to us, it's to somebody else.
Right, it's a media. I mean, in order to get that post office back, we need to draw publicity to the fact that we don't have a post office, and it's
Yeah.
really impactful for the community.
The visitors will see it.
And there's plenty of people who drive by there that don't live here, and they're like, oh,
Oh, yeah.
you know, so I think this is a real, the post office is a governmental agency. Like similar to the fire department and the BPUD, and I think that this is a good use of that space at the
Yeah.
moment. Since we're not having
Okay.
a water emergency.
Right.
We don't need it ourselves right now.
yeah, okay.
So do you need a formal motion? or
No,
that's
because
good
I
enough?
didn't put it on the agenda, so it's more if so I told him I thought it would be fine, but I wanted to have the discussion here because of this exact reason of not,
Right.
of, you know, not setting up, just we're making it clear, we're
Yeah.
very selective.
Right, well, I think the discussion established the grounds for making it,
Yeah.
you know, special reason. All right. you
Okay.
Continue.
Yeah, just a couple things, sorry. Though I wanted to follow up on, and this was what Janine referenced earlier with regard to, well, not, she was asking the broader question about the amending the resolution, but I did follow up with the county on this issue. There's a lot of discussion at the meeting, couple of meetings about whether you can merge property across the street. And if so, would the county, is that then considered a single lot of record? And would the county allow secondary uses to be on so if you have a primary use on one parcel and you merge a parcel from across the street, will the county then allow a secondary use on that lot across the street? Because the common understanding as I was hearing it was no, the county, that you can't do that, even if you could merge across. And I think there was also some skepticism about whether you could merge across the street. so I thought, well, we should find out what the county says about it. And when I got the answer back, and I told the county, I said, I'm asking this for the community. I need it in writing, and we just need a clear understanding for the community. And so I was told that mergers are allowed on contiguous units of land held under the same ownership, that the development code defines contiguous properties as, quote, all adjoining land owned or controlled by the applicant, the property lines of which touch or join at more than one point, or the property lines of which are separated only by a public or private street, road, or other public or private right-of-way, or separated only by other land owned by the applicant. Then the planner went on to say, once the lots are merged, the underlying zoning dictates the allowed use. If there's a single family residence on one property, then an ADU will be allowed either on the same side of the street as the primary use or the opposite side of the street. So that's just
That's the county's view.
that's the county's view.
Right.
So I just wanted to state that for the record that I
Good.
followed up
Good.
about that. It was a little surprising,
Wow.
but that's the answer.
Thank you for chasing it down.
And,
All right.
then with regard to the county, I'm hoping that you will not have any objection to me sending in a letter where the Tom Lai is retiring. He's a long-term county employee for sure, has been the director of the community development agencies for the last couple of years. Had a health event that required him to step down, and they're honoring him. I just found out very recently, next Tuesday at the Board of Supervisors. And so I've drafted a letter that reflects that it's on behalf of the district board and staff, and just expressing our admiration and respect for Tom and his many decades of public service. And I can personally say that I can't tell you, I mean, I didn't abuse it, but if I picked up the phone and called him, he always answered, and he would know, that I wasn't abusing access, and that he helped us out a lot over the years with quick advice, with being really open and helpful. And I just think he's been a fabulous person to work with from the county, and I know they'll miss him. And so I'd really like to have the district contribute a letter that would be part of his package that he would get. So does that sound okay?
You do.
I thought that was a great letter that you wrote.
Yeah. thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, really, so eloquent.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate it. I really like Tom. So I very much hope he'll enjoy his retirement now. Thank you. Just the last thing I want to say, unless anyone has any questions about anything else, is on behalf of the Alliance of Coastal Marin Villages, I wanted to just urge people I actually put the first time ever, I put the link to something on the agenda on our website. There's a link to a survey that the county's doing. It's only open until May 1st to give your views and opinions about short-term rentals in your community or in West Marin. It's really important that people participate in this if they care about this issue and the impact on the communities. And so we're really, all of the members of the Alliance of Coastal Marin Villages are trying to really urge the members of their villages to take a look, that it's not time consuming. It's also available in Spanish. And I think that the input will be really important to what happens with regard to any kind of regulation of short-term rentals in the unincorporated part of Marin. So
Is it in the hearsay?
I saw that Harriet Moss, I think, put it in today's hearsay.
I think I saw it today.
Yeah.
I might want to put it in a couple of times, yeah.
And we put it on Nextdoor, but this just like disappear into the ether. I do not understand how Nextdoor works. Yeah, yes. But I'll try to make sure it gets in the hearsay again.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks. Sorry, it was such a long report tonight. But, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
I have one more question for you about the post office.
Yeah.
Just, are we in open communication with the Mesa Park Board about this?
Yeah.
They're involved with it, right?
Yes, they are. I've been on phone calls and I know Melinda, Einor and Steve have been consulting with, I know she told me also Drew, Sayback, the manager, but I know Mark Lukinik and don't know if the full board at meetings, but I know at a minimum, those two people.
Okay, good,
Yeah.
good, great.
No.
Thank you.
All right. Item 5 is one in which I'm going to accuse myself. So I'm going to give it a go. Great. It's a time.
There's no. Yeah. Item 5 is Finger Coastal Permit, limited water use permit application, water meter transfer agreement. And it's good that you're here to speak with them or answer questions.
I'm here to participate in the meeting if need be. I thought we already kind of discussed it previously. And I know that I've signed some papers that I think coincide with this permit approval.
Jennifer, would
Yeah.
you like to speak to this?
Sure. I mean, at the February meeting, you came and presented, and the board approved the transfer of Bobby's water meter from 117 Terrace to the lot at Evergreen and Elm, subject to all county requirements and also an agreeable form of water meter transfer agreement and limited water use permit application. And so what Bobby's agreed to is the our standard form of water meter transfer agreement that we have used with several water meter transfers in recent history. And that reflects all the requirements of Ordinance 38. And then he's also submitted an application for a limited water use permit. And we have in your materials is also his 4-year water use history, which is very modest. And as we discussed at the last meeting, under our resolution 655, that resolution provides that the sort of floor amount of water use that's allowed under these permits is 2,700 cubic feet per quarter, which is about 224 gallons a day, which is more than he's historically used at his current place. But that would be under resolution 655, that would be the applicable amount to grant under the as a limited water use permit. So there's really two actions to take. One is to approve the water meter transfer agreement, and the second is to take action on the limited water use permit.
Any questions from board members?
Have you submitted to the county the buying application? Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
Question just about your plantings and how you, obviously you're a very conscientious water user, as we can see from your previous usage last 4 years, like Jennifer mentioned. Just and I see some new trees going in, you included your planting plan here throughout.
Yes.
So just I don't see any water collection though, so I just want to make sure that you're have a plan for all the new planting and trees.
Well, there's very little planting.
Okay, good. You've got it under control, it sounds like.
Yes,
Okay.
and if I do need a catchment system, I can
Okay,
easily install one. But right now, I don't see it necessary for the amount of vegetation that's in the landscape plan.
okay, great. Thank you. I think we need to-
Okay, I'd entertain the motion to grant the water meter transfer agreement. Is that correct, Jennifer?
Yes, with one correction, because in his review, Director McElroy pointed out to me that I have a typo on the final page with your assessor parcel numbers not correctly stated. I said 119. Anyway, we need to just fix that typo, but that would be, then we can. So,
With the correction mentioned.
yes.
Do we have a motion to approve the transfer of the water meter?
I would motion to approve it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and moving on, do we have a motion to approve the limited water use permit?
And that would be for, yeah, you move for the specific amount. It's,
For,
Under resolution 655.
Yeah. mhm,
2,700 cubic feet per quarter
right,
maximum.
yeah.
I make that motion.
A second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Good luck with your project.
Yeah.
Story polls will be going up next week.
Thanks.
And I'll follow up with you, Bobby, about just, we'll just have to, I'll have
You
to
want
fix
me
that
to-
and we'll sign another agreement, but I'll follow up with you.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
We want to let Jack back in.
Who's your builder?
Right, are you building yourself?
Thanks again.
Good night. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bobby.
Great stuff down.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll call the next item. This is item 6, limited water use permit application for 72 Crescente Avenue. S. Jenkins. And there's a second. But it's just repairs to an existing second story deck and other described work here. Is Jenkins present?
there, I don't believe so that, I did have an email from the contractor on the project who just, then in an actual submitted application. I will note that this property has an existing limited water use permit. And it has a maximum quarterly water allotment of 3,400 cubic feet. And in the past, the practice of the board has been to reaffirm the terms of the permit. When this one, it is adding a small amount of living space, but no plumbing features, no bathrooms, kitchen or bedrooms. So anyway, there is the existing permit.
So your recommendation would be just to continue the existing
Yeah.
limited permit. Gonna get a motion for that.
I can move that we continue the existing limited water use permit.
Is there a second?
A second.
If you all in favor? Aye. Or 0. Number 7,
And was that Andrew that you seconded?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
item 7, draft fiscal year 2023-24 district budget, updated 5-year capital improvement plan for 2022 through 27. And the specific item is a draft proposition 218 notice regarding proposed increases in annual water and sewer charges. So we are required by law to give that kind of a notice whenever we're going to increase our charges. And we have a draft and a binder. You need a motion to approve your draft.
Yeah, just very briefly stated, what it does is it informs all property owners in the district that are served by our water and sewer system about the fact that it gives them a copy of our draft budget as it's developed right now through as of today. And notices that if the board adopts the board's going to have a budget hearing at the June meeting. And that is at which time anybody can express any opposition. This is notifying people more than 45 days ahead that you're intending to have a hearing on the budget in June, and that they can protest if they want to, and that we have to notify them that we do intend, does look like we will have to increase the water service charge and the sewer service charge by 6% in order to meet our planned operating expenses, to fund our capital improvement and debt, and also to make up. We've had declining water sales revenue, obviously, because of the drought, and also because of the unfavorable economic conditions. We have not been earning almost any interest at all on our funds that are in reserve. And so we've had a decline in revenue there, and we've had increased expenses in the way of, some emergency projects, but also some additional projects I think the district is, prudently undertaking in order to repair and improve our infrastructure. So, and we are, the personnel committee recommended and the finance committee has agreed, in this budget reflects that we'd have a new position in the office here at the BPUD that would be, for want of a better way to describe it, like an assistant general manager position. And so that position is also described, and the compensation for it is laid out clearly in the budget so that people can see it, and the overall cost to the district between compensation and benefits is $140,000. And so that's also a new cost that is reflected in the budget.
All right, so what we're looking for now, I assume is a motion to approve the draft letter for Prop 218 notice.
Exactly, because we need to mail that out. The actual deadline's May 5th. We're going to try to mail it out May 3rd. We have to mail it out 45 days or more in advance of the June hearing. And copy of it's in your binders.
Get a motion then to approve sending the Prop 218 notice.
I move.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. 4-0.
Who moved? I'm sorry,
moved
you
it.
moved. I confused your voices for some reason. So, okay, thank you.
Item 8. Update from the ad hoc committee regarding the BPUD building at 270 Elm Road in Galena. So either Andrew or Jennifer, is there any update?
Well, what you've got in your binders is, did everyone get that? Let me see, do I have it? It's the preliminary record of survey and the topographic mapping has been completed. We've had a little bit of an interesting thing where this property is still being shown as owned by the Bolinas Beach Public Utility District. And so we're being told by the county that we should do a quitclaim deed to try to fix that. And anyway, I've never done that, so I got to figure out how to do that. But we're just trying to get it properly reflected in the name of the Bolinas Community Public Utility District. But so the preliminary record of surveys been done and submitted to the county. And then we'll be hearing back further from our surveyors once they get the comments back from the county. The topo map is done, and we're now getting in contract with the geotechnical engineers at Miller Pacific. And they submitted a slightly revised proposal because they had their drilling costs went up. It'll be a couple $1,000s more. I think it went from $10,000 to $12,000. Yeah. So we're getting in contract with them, and then we're going to solicit another proposal for the septic work, just to do a little more due diligence on that. But so we're moving along.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Now about the title. The problem is if you're going to get a quitclaim deed, somebody has to sign the deed on behalf of the entity known as the Bolinas Beach. Whatever that's on the record.
I'll sign
He would say, what the guy at the county said is, he says, I can see Bolinas Beach PUD and BPUD underwent a name change and consolidation, because I provided that. I
Right.
said that doesn't exist anymore. He said the ownership of the parcel is still based on the grantee in the original deed. And he gives a citation. To update the name, I believe you will need to record a new deed, quitclaim deed, quitclaiming the property from Bolinas Beach PUDM BPUD to the Bolinas Community Public Utility District.
Yeah, that's what
So I just sign it over and over again too.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, a deed normally is from the person who's
Yeah.
conveying to the person who's receiving, but the entity that's conveying doesn't exist anymore. So I'm not sure what they have in mind for who's supposed to sign that deed.
Yeah, I'll see. I mean, I guess it doesn't
Point it out
matter.
to county council or something. I
Okay.
think that these people just need to understand they're asking for a deed from an entity which doesn't exist. So,
Okay.
you know, what do you want from us?
Okay,
mean,
okay.
I think you could actually sign it if they would accept it. as the BPUD as successor and interest.
Right,
to,
yeah.
And then to the BPUD.
right,
That's the only thing, yeah. Anyway. just-
okay. I'll pursue that to see what we can, it would be nice to kind of have it cleaned up.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
On the board.
Okay, number 9, volunteer meeting reports. About the resident permit parking committee, is there anything new on that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, resource recovery.
No.
West Marin mosquito control?
No.
No. And the land stewardship committee,
Jenny has her hand up.
Janine, you have your hand up?
Yes, I don't know, did you receive a copy of some signs that we're hoping to post on the Tolucci property? Did you get that? Maybe you didn't.
I received them, Janine, but I hadn't had a chance to forward them to the board.
Okay. That's fine. I'll just tell you what it says. So the idea is that the Mark Tolucci owns the property all the way down the ramp to the bench. I'm sure you're all familiar with the bench that overlooks the beach, right? On the right, the ramp. So all that property between there and the going up towards his driveway is his property. So he's in agreement of posting some signs to say no camping, fires, or commercial use. Please leave area clean and unaltered. It's a very simple sign, looks like a park sign, 10 by 8 or something, 12 by 8. So Allison Evans, who's the neighbor, found someone who would produce those signs. And so the idea was, with his approval, was to just post those signs to keep people from using that area commercially for sales and setting up little businesses and things. Now, I don't think that in any way affects the BPUD's portion of that area, correct?
Right.
So it's okay to go ahead and just do that.
Yeah.
But, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, then also in terms, so we'll do that. So the other thing is that I don't think you've received this either. I just got 2 estimates for tree work on the one cypress that does belong to the BPUD. That's the lower cypress closest to the beach. And I just sent those to Jennifer, probably not in time to get them to you. And one is from Bartlett Tree. It's about $2,000 to just improve appearance, reduce risk of branch, stem, and or root failure, clean it up, get all the broken stuff out. He'd have to go through the gate. Bartlett's a very well-known tree service, Bartlett Tree Experts. They'd have to go through the gate and probably set up a crane or something to work in it. And that's 2,000. And there's another estimate that is more, it's for taking out the entire tree. And that's more like $5,000. And I don't really know if that's necessary. It is Mark Tolucci's tree. He would have to agree to whatever happens. I mean, it's not his tree, it's sitting, the trunk of it is on his property. So anyway, you will receive those 2 estimates. I'm not saying you have to move on it. That's just your choices. If you wanted to have Ray Moritz or somebody to look at the trees and you're given evaluation, that's possible too. So I feel like my job is just to get you the information. So there's the information about the trees and the sign, and that's as far as we've gotten so far. So we'll get those estimates to you, and maybe at the next meeting, we can have further discussion.
Yeah, well, we can talk about it because there's still a strong feeling that the tree is on Mark's property. And as you point out, the trunk is on his property, and that means the tree is on his property. So we have to decide how much money, if any, we're willing to spend on that. But why don't you bring us the rest of the information, and we'll address it at our next meeting.
Okay, well, the lower tree, all the tree trunks are on Mark's property.
Right.
But the lowest tree overhangs the BPUD property. So in
Right,
order,
we got that.
okay, so he probably would not pay, he has to pay for the other trees that overhang his property. He would probably not contribute to trimming out that lower tree, which overhangs the district's property.
All right.
So,
Let's
real-
discuss
Yeah.
it at our next meeting.
okay,
Thank you for getting the estimates, Janine.
right. But do you want me to ask him if he would chip in on it, or I don't think I could ask him.
Yeah, what do you say? I think so.
Yeah, if things are on his property, it would be good to ask him to chip in, I think.
Yeah.
All right,
All right.
thank you.
Thanks, Janine.
I'll go on to item 10, other business. These are board committee reports, finance committee. We've got a series of things on the agenda. How do you want to deal with them, Jennifer?
Well, I think first, just to be clear, the minutes of the finance committee meeting have already been approved by the finance committee and are in your binders
Okay.
informationally.
Okay,
So really the item unless there's any questions about any of that, the main thing is to give you the second quarter financial statements. And so, obviously this is for the fiscal year that we're in right now. It's for the period July 1 through December 31. And I know we're already at the end of Q3, but it can just take some time to get these finalized. And so we've met with our bookkeepers and our CPA. And so these are our final, the final version of our Q2 statements. And I don't know if you had any specific questions. I think the overall gist of things is we're about where we expected to be in the fiscal year in terms of where our revenues are and where our expenses are running a little bit. I think on the water side, it's a little bit higher than expected, but that on our overall, let me just double check this.
anyone on the board have any questions about them? No.
No.
All right, so why don't we
Okay.
continue? Is there any other items under finance committee?
I don't think so. Nope, because we kind of covered it with the budget and the Prop 218 notice. That's what the
Yeah.
finance committee did at the most recent meeting.
All right, legal, I don't think we have anything. You make the septic flood control and roads committee.
Nothing.
I have questions about that because it's been really clear from the last rains that continuing Louis Lycovers legacy is an important thing, I think, for us to do. The drainage in so many places is really.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You asked me to do that in the manager's report and I forgot we've staff spent some lots of hours over the last couple of months doing a lot of ditch maintenance, culvert clearing, consultations with customers who wanted consultations about how to improve the drainage on their property. And it actually led to the discovery of a leak on one of our water mains because the poor customer said, I just can't seem to get the water off his property. And the guys went and looked and like, oh my God, we have a leak on our water main that's in his flood. That's why his property is so wet, because there had been some water from our system. So that was an unexpected discovery. But that's what the staff's been doing a lot of work in that in terms of reestablishing and when it was wet. So when you can see that the work you're doing is then resulting in the improved drainage, it's really hard to do things and know that you've got it right without a lot of special equipment when it's dry. The county's been out doing work on, they did it, I said on along Elm, and they've been doing ditch clearing and culvert clearing on the various county roads as well. But yeah, the guys have been doing a lot of work this winter on getting all those systems, that just when it has been so dry, it really hasn't been very much of an issue. But
Right, and piggybacking on that, when it's so dry, everything grows in and fills up and, people dump loads of chips in the ditch and, all the things happen. So I think that, I know that Billy always had that kind of back of mind, like, oh, don't dump that in the ditch. It's
Right.
a ditch. And so I love it that the guys are doing that. And I think it's really a really big customer service.
yeah.
And important for the septics and all the things. I think I just want to highlight that.
Yeah, I would especially single out Andrew Spalding. He seems to be the one that is particularly passionate
yeah.
about it. And so,
Maybe he can gradually work into a Louis type assignment. I mean,
It'd be great to
Yeah.
have somebody who
Yeah.
would own that and
yeah,
have the plan in their head and be on the lookout for it. I think that would be great.
I would say that that's kind of naturally evolving in that
Yeah.
way for
Super.
Andrew, for sure. And so he's definitely, he likes to do the work and he's just interested in it inherently. So,
That's
yeah.
terrific. Tell them thanks.
yeah.
all right. Water and Sewer Operations Committee. Nothing, and the Personnel Committee, I think we have anything. That takes us to minutes of the February 12th regular board meeting. And there's also minutes of the March 15th regular board meeting.
Actually, no, just February 15th. I didn't get March done. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in our binder is a draft of the minutes. Usually what I do is ask if anyone has any changes or corrections.
No.
And if not, then I look for a motion to approve the minutes as drafted.
I move we approve the February minutes as drafted.
Thank you very much. Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 0. All right, we'll do the March ones at the next meeting.
Yeah.
And the warrants, is there a motion to approve the warrants?
I move to approve the warrants.
Okay. There's a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good. With that, we're gonna go on to scheduling our next meeting.
May 17th.
Okay. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.
Okay.
It's so satisfying when you get that down.
9:27.